This WiLLcast was with Sadie, the president and CEO of Envision Fond du Lac.
Yes, Sadie. We met Sadie. I met Sadie through YPF a bit ago, but you've known Sadie for a while.
Yeah, I think a couple years. She's been with Envision for a couple years. She actually got in right before COVID, which was fun timing.
Yeah, I think it was immediately before COVID, like within a couple of weeks of the state shutting down.
Yes. It was a fun talk. Understanding her background. She was involved in politics early on in her career. Has a lot of experience in the manufacturing space.
Yes.
Has toured many manufacturing facilities. I saw her last week at Wells Manufacturing here in town. But it was nice to get her perspective on what's happening in Fond du Lac and kind of the vision of how to continue to double down and promote the manufacturing sector, and learn about her team and some of her her leadership approaches to managing her team. And it was a really good, open and honest chat.
Yeah, she was very forthcoming with her thoughts and stuff like that about what's going on in the county, which is great. She's really refreshing, just a really positive person, super honest. And she talked a little bit about her leadership style and working with different types of individuals within an organization, which I thought was really cool to hear, because a lot of it, I think, aligns with what we're doing here at Will. So that's always a good feeling that someone else is thinking the same things we are. And she's from the Fond du Lac County area. She grew up around here, went to school, came back. So she's really a champion for bringing more business, more people. She talked a little bit about some of the initiatives that Envision has in place to attract more talent this direction. So always fun to talk with our friends from Envision Greater Fond du Lac.
Absolutely. It was also fun diving into the agriculture sector. We touched on that and some of the automation that's happening in that space, and some of the things Envision they're doing to support that sector. And I think it would be cool to have some farming and agriculture guests on WiLLcast, which I think we might.
Funny you mention it. We have a couple
on the schedule.
Yeah, in September. So stay tuned. There's gonna be some more great WiLLcast content, and I think we have a few others that hopefully we can tee up and start to get that side of the Wisconsin economy highlighted as well.
Cool. And this episode is brought to you by the HSX Sports Lighter, our LED sports lighter solution here at Wisconsin Lighting Lab. We do a lot of local projects with this particular product, everything from trap and skeet ranges to what we call beer league softball and baseball. But it's a great great product. It looks the part, looks like your classic sports lighter design, easy to install. So if you're a contractor or a sales partner or an end user, and you're interested in a cost-effective upgrade for your field, please reach out. Go to willbrands.com. Otherwise, contact our sales team, and we will be happy to support your project.
Absolutely.
Enjoy.
And it's just amazing.
It really is cool.
It's amazing. I think what is the most amazing, so back up, I've toured a lot of manufacturers. In my old job when I worked for Congressman Grothman, he went all around the 6th district touring manufacturers. So I've toured a lot. They're really cool. I love doing that. Wells is the only manufacturer that I've ever toured that makes all of their own machines too.
That was really cool to see.
And it's incredible because they make them and then they can fix them.
Yeah.
So you're not waiting for whoever from Italy to come and fix your giant machine and get trained on it, or you hope if only Bob knows how to fix it and Bob's out, what do you do? So they make them, they fix them, they're incredibly efficient.
That was my observation too. There is much of a machine making and robotics company as they are a part maker. Mm-hmm. That was really neat to see. So you said you used to work for Congressman Grothman. Mm-hmm. What's your background?
A lot of federal government and political campaigns.
Okay.
So I started out in college interning for Tom Petri,
Where'd you go to school?
UW La Crosse.
Okay, cool.
Was an economics and pre-law major.
Nice. I was an econ and finance major.
Econ. You know, I was an econ major. I don't tell a lot of people this, so why would I say it publicly? Because I was a journalism major first, and I met with an advisor, and they said, "Well, you know, you're one of 6,000 students." This was when I was at University of Minnesota. In our journalism program, you know, we're the #1 in the nation for journalism. And I just thought, my odds out of 6,000 are
pretty
not going to be
competitive.
great. So I asked the advisor, I said, what's the major that has the least amount of women in it? And she goes, economics. I said, I'm going to change my major to economics.
So was the goal to go work at a paper and write the daily econ column?
No, I mean, I thought I was going to be, you know, the hard-hitting CNN person behind the scenes.
Sure.
You know, not on TV, but the investigative journalist. And I was a good writer. Thought I was a good writer. And but gosh, I'm so glad I didn't, because I am a freak and love government and figuring out bureaucracy. And
What do you like about it? I don't know if I'm in that camp.
I know, but somebody has to be.
Oh, for sure.
And
we need more good people
Right.
that want to be part of it.
Right. And it is also, you know, figuring out the bureaucratic process. So rather than fighting it, you can understand it, and fighting it's great too.
Yep.
But then you can understand it and figure out, okay, so I need to do this, and I'm going to get the result I want a lot faster. And I loved the constituent services part. So I was with Congressman Petri for about a little over 5 years. I was with Congressman Grothman for a little over 5 years, and the majority of that was doing or overseeing constituent services. So helping people was fantastic, and helping them navigate the bureaucracy of
So
it.
if people don't like what's going on in government, what is the path that people are supposed to reach out to their congressmen and their senators? And it sounds like maybe you were interacting with voters. But what is the path supposed to look like? Because I think a lot of people want to change things, but they don't always know the path, even if it is as simple as calling up your congressman.
And it is that simple.
Yeah.
Email, call, write. And that they're all treated. Emails honestly get processed just a lot faster, because
Yep.
that's the world now. But we're still processing a lot of phone calls and a few letters. I think what at least when I worked in it, if you called or wrote a letter, you got a response and somebody was reading it. And I think sometimes people think it's not even worth reaching out, because a congressman and a senator or a governor, I can't speak for the state, are so big that nobody's ever going to read it or listen to it. But we did, and we do. And it is really important to reach out when you're unsatisfied.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just interesting how, a lot of people, they focus so much on what happens at the national level, and it seems like the most change can happen when people focus on their city, their state, at a local level. So
100%.
maybe, hopefully, and if people knew that, and if people were more encouraged to reach out for the, the good and the bad, but the critical feedback is usually more useful than positive feedback. How can we actually change things for the best? But that's one thing that's really where my head has gone, the last few years is, everything is so frustrating at a national level. What are the things we can do, either whether it's in the business community or within our own city? What groups can we get involved with to make change at the micro scale, so it ripples to the macro scale?
Well, you get involved with Envision Greater
And
Fond
we
du
have,
Lac.
and it's been great.
We have an advocacy committee,
Yeah.
which is new to us, to have a formalized advocacy committee. It was always part of Envision, and our chamber is advocating for
All
business.
these fancy terms.
And essentially standing up for business
Yeah.
and listening to the
Yeah.
business needs. And because you're right, national politics get all the attention and all the
It's
hype,
a distraction.
but you are much more impacted when your local city council or county board raises your property tax or your mill rate,
Yeah.
or puts a stop sign in next to
Yep.
your house, or zoning approves, you can build this commercial building next in a residential area, and maybe you didn't want that, but it was too late because the open comment period was 6 months ago and you didn't know. And so local government and local politics affect us so much more day to day.
Yeah.
And if you go to a town board meeting, the likelihood is those men have probably been on there for 40 years.
Yep.
And
They're
have
s-
never
stuck in their ways.
have
They
never
don't
run
want to
opposed.
change. Yeah.
So it's really hard to get people into local government.
Yeah, I've been involved with a couple groups just a little bit in the last 12 months at the state level, and what one of my observations has been is how much more closely aligned both parties are behind closed doors. And then in the public arena, they end up, putting on this, fighting match, but it's, everybody has a lot of the same incentives and the same goals when it's a meeting behind closed doors. It's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been your observation?
For sure.
Yeah.
And, I think especially out in D.C., you would be shocked to know who's going out to dinner together and having drinks together that are on opposite sides of the aisle.
For sure. So at what point did you get to Envision?
I joined Envision in April of 2020.
Okay. Well, that's a fun time to start a new job.
My first day was Monday, April 20th.
Okay.
And
I was about a month into it.
Yep.
6:30
a.m. I had a phone call with County Executive Alan Beekle about what could we do to help the business community survive and thrive during COVID. And so we started the Reopen Fond du Lac County Task Force, which was crazy how quickly we brought it together without really knowing what we were going to do. We just knew we had to get all different industries and people throughout the whole county at the same table to start talking about the topic. And, through that task force with about 50 other people throughout the county and organizations, we put out resources, guidelines, how to reopen, how do you screen your employees, what's your responsibility as an employer, what's your responsibility as an employee, how to protect yourself, how to get into e-commerce if you've never done e-commerce before, signage. So it was, I think, no surprise that in Fond du Lac County we all came together for something and helped each other out.
And Fond du Lac grew through that time. Unemployment stayed, very low and actually shrunk. I think when we had Joe on the WiLLcast, he'd mentioned, there's several national articles written about this area and how, it thrived throughout, that period.
We did. We were, maybe don't quote me, I believe we were the number one MSA to come back to pre-COVID unemployment levels fastest. We were back, by June of 2021. Okay, Tracy's shaking her head, so yes. We also were ranked number one. The city of Fond du Lac was ranked number one in wage growth. And, I grew up around Fond du Lac, and I've always heard, well, Fond du Lac's always behind, and the wages are never catching up. And to see that we were number one in wage growth, and you can see it everywhere.
For sure.
You drive around, starting wages are rising, and
there's really two sides to that equation. It's cost of living and wage growth.
Right.
And the cost of living around here is it's very reasonable. And if wages are growing at the same time, it's great from a individual purchasing power standpoint.
Absolutely. Great point, which I had never truly connected, was right that our cost of living stayed pretty even.
Yeah.
While wage growth grew. So great. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the insight
For sure.
into my own job.
No, I mean, I think one of the things that I think the area is really in a good spot to take advantage of over the next probably hopefully couple decades is just all the onshoring that's happening from a manufacturing standpoint. And we were at Wells last night, and that was one of the topics that people were talking about is how do we get our supply chains closer to Wisconsin, closer to the Midwest. And I think Wisconsin's in a great spot, and that's really in part what gives us the confidence to continue to invest. And we see it every single day. And we have 10 electrical contractors, 10 new contractors every day that contact us looking for stuff. It's because of the supply chain breakdown. And if you can offer flexibility, and if you can provide value, it's not always about the price. People need to get off of job sites, and people need customization. And I really think the Midwest is in a it's in a great spot. So you said you've seen a lot of different manufacturing facilities. What do you guys see that manufacturers can do better to attract young people? That's one of the things that I think about a lot is, you go into a lot of these facilities, and the average age of the people there is they're not super young.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things when people come tour us, that is always their first observation. And I think it's so important to attract the next generation of people in manufacturing, not just the folks building the product, but people in sales, people in marketing, people in engineering. What do you think manufacturers can do better to attract young people?
That was my question for you.
Oh, it was?
How are you? You are a leading manufacturer.
Yeah.
In not just the city, the county, the region. You have expanded. You're adding on a giant expansion. I know your future growth plans are adding 70 salespeople.
Ooh, I don't know about that. Maybe 70 people.
Over the next few years. So
hopefully
are you
Chad
doing
doesn't
it?
listen to this.
Sadie, you're making him blush.
No. I think it has to be exciting. I think there's so many industries and so many markets that have gotten all the excitement the last couple decades. Like, when I was going to college, or it's like, okay, go to California, go to Silicon Valley. If you're going to be an engineer, go do software development for an iPhone application, or go get into financial services. Like, I was originally a finance and econ major. It's like, go work at a bank, go into become a consultant. And I think that that same excitement that those industries get, I think, has to be applied to manufacturing, because frankly, it hasn't been super exciting. So, if people want to attract younger, talented people, I think they have to find a way to make it exciting. And it's probably the products that they're developing. It's their brands. It's getting people in the sales and the marketing space interacting with people in engineering and people on the shop floor, and just trying to get people excited about it from the shop floor all the way through the people at the top. And I think that maybe factories try and trick people into getting excited, but once somebody's at a job for a couple weeks, they're going to know if it was real during the interview process or not. And I think there are some really good examples in Fond du Lac. I mean, look at Excel Engineering. They're not necessarily in manufacturing, but they design manufacturing facilities. They've got hundreds of engineers. You look at Wells, look at Mercury. So there are some really good examples. And I think it's as much of a marketing issue in the manufacturing space as it is an issue at the individual company level. And you look at the Teslas of the world, the SpaceX of the world. Like, there are industries where that are trying to make manufacturing more exciting, and I think that'll pick up. But it can happen in small business too. We're a small company. It doesn't just have to be huge companies where all the excitement is. It can be smaller companies too. So, long-winded answer.
We talk about this at least 3 times.
I think, yeah,
it's one of
an
the biggest
important
pain
theme.
points or conversations or whatever you want to call it. We constantly talk about making manufacturing cool and exciting and
Yep.
attracting the right kind of people and positioning and banding together to make other manufacturers realize it's possible.
You're definitely doing it. How many open positions do you have right now?
We don't really have. I mean, when people, we are always open to hiring good people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Where'd your last 3 people come from?
like, what teams were they for?
What were their backgrounds? How'd they hear about you? How'd they get to you?
Well, we have a guy starting next week in the sales department that used to ride his bike up and down the street, and then went back to school. He was working at a supper club, that was just basically he knew about us. The job he was working at, the owner knew us.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a lot of word of mouth. Back in 2019, we did just a pretty extreme hiring push. We hired one salesperson every month, and that we got beyond our network. We were using recruiters. That just we didn't have enough within our network. But I think similar to at the annual event that you guys put on, the speaker, I think it's thinking about HR and recruiting as a sales and a marketing position.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just something to do when you need to hire somebody. It's like, give off a cool vibe and attract people to the operation. You'll be surprised. How many people are interested. Now, we're not perfect. There's been times where we've maybe gone directions we shouldn't, or we've expanded too fast or too slowly. But generally, it's try and get people interested, to the operation. And as positions open up or as good people come around, maybe bring them on.
That's awesome. So Chris Zarnick was our speaker at our annual meeting.
Yeah, he was great.
And he made that comment of treat job applicants like you treat your customers.
Yes.
And how many times have we probably all heard, well, I applied for a job and I never heard. Or I went through an interview and I never heard. And
we're all guilty of that.
We are. But could you imagine doing that too?
Adam deleted my application the first time.
But the best people
He did.
Always come back.
Well,
there's numerous examples. It's like that means they really want the
Yeah,
job.
she had the grit. She came back.
The person who recommended me was mad.
It's true.
There was a late night phone.
But he was right, and I have been guilty of that as well.
And you would never, if you had a customer email you and saying, because you figure your employees make you $200,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. So if a customer says, I want to order something for $500,000, you would never not respond to them. Can you imagine what that conversation with your salesperson would be? Was, how dare you? And it's the changing world. And I was just listening to a podcast before getting here on the changing shape of the workforce, and it's an employees market right now.
For sure.
And, being a business member organization that we are, that is not always ideal. I mean, this is a really tough market for businesses and something they've never had to go through before, of marketing to a job applicant and convincing somebody that they should work for you rather than you saying, I'm giving you a paycheck, you should be thankful to me. And, we've had quite the change in company culture just at Envision of remote work and half-day Fridays and dress for your day, all of these tangible, intangible things to make it
the total package, right?
a better place to work. And so do you agree with the statement that culture comes from the top down?
I think the culture should reflect what actually happens versus what people pitch as the culture. Like, I think people know, like, it's a buzzword. People know they should have a cool culture, but it has to go beyond just the job description and the website. Like, when people come through, and Becca and I have talked about this, when I I still interview almost everybody, and I'll bring them through, give them a tour, and I'm just 100% transparent, and like I want them to be 100% transparent, and because again, the applicant can only trick the employer for so long, and the employer can only trick the applicant for so long. At some point, when they come through, they're going to know if it was a good decision or not. So it's just, try and be real. We are far from perfect, when it comes to, HR stuff, but I think it's just people being real. And I think young people actually they're pretty good at picking up on that. They say authenticity is it's a form of currency now. Like the more real you can be, the more, you're going to kind of give off a good vibe. And I think, top down, I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's probably a case to some degree, but it should really, everybody should try and embody the culture. If the culture is only isolated to a couple people, if those people aren't here or, if they're gone, it's like, well, then everything falls apart. So you'd hope that it can be more of a grassroots effort.
That's a really good statement of if it's always only being led by a couple people and they're gone, and then you have a very different culture that was built on, no transparency or dedication, commitment.
Yeah, and just being shooting straight with people and just saying, we change a lot. We change a lot, like on a, and the expectation is that if we discover a better way to do something, even if it means, somebody's position might change a little bit, or they might be on a different team, or we reorganize a building and we realize, shoot, we're wrong. We're going to reorganize it in a different way, and the expectation is that we're always going to do the right thing. Like, fundamentally, what is the right way to do something? And we will adjust, and that definitely is not for everybody. Like, some people want to know what the next few years look like, and those jobs are great too. But for us, we've never hired an executive. We hire people, and we learn and we adjust, and that it requires that nimbleness as you learn stuff. So. Yeah, you're asking me a lot of questions.
You said yesterday.
I did.
Feel free to throw me a question.
I
or
love
two.
this. I think this is great.
So I was talking with one of our team members about what their next growth decision, where they're going to go, because we're growing at Envision.
That's awesome.
And it's like you said, sometimes it might be a little too fast, a little too slow. Are we doing it right? This is the first time I've ever led an organization. So, I make mistakes all the time.
We all do,
and
which is okay.
That was hard to learn.
Well, that's the thing is the expectation should be there will be mistakes made, but the expectation should also be as they're discovered, it's okay to adjust. That's a really hard thing to do because people want to be right. And it's not even I think you shouldn't like actively seek out being wrong, but it's if you discover something, like you should have the confidence to adjust. And we're not perfect in that arena either.
Yeah. Good thing I usually can be comfortable enough with saying, "Oh man, I really botched that one."
Yeah.
And tattle on myself most of the time. And so back to, I gave her this book. It's called Radical Candor. And I said, what this is reminding me of is an article I read. I think it was Kim Scott wrote Radical Candor. And there's a paragraph or a chapter about rising stars and superstars. And it just so resonated with me because I'm sorry, rock star and superstar. I have always been a superstar. I am always, what's next? What's growth? How can I learn? What can I do? That growth mindset. And that's great, but you also need rock stars of people who genuinely love their job.
Yep.
And, at a manufacturer, too, there's somebody whose job is probably feels a little bit like a cog in the wheel, and they love it, and that's great.
For sure.
You know, my dad worked at Mercury Marine 38 years in Lost Foam, Plant 17.
The foundry.
Yep.
Nice.
Did the same thing every day, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation I had with a team member was, if this next step isn't what you want, that's okay. And I said, I would not have been able to say this to you 2 years ago, because I would have been telling you what I would have wanted to hear, which is, how could you not want to grow and do something different or more? And to get out of my own mind of, we need rock stars in our companies, and we need superstars, and let them be who they are.
Yeah, I'm reading a really good book right now called Build. It was a guy that he was like one of the engineers that led the the iPod project, and then the iPhone, and then the Nest thermostat. And he calls it individual contributors versus team leaders versus managers. And, individual contributors are absolutely as important as team leaders who might manage a team of 3 or 4 people, and then a manager who starts to think more like a CEO. And a lot of it is timelines. Are you trying to solve things 5 years from now and then kind of reverse engineer it into the day? But some people, they're perfectly happy at being super successful as an individual contributor and a team leader. And, I think you're right. It's probably being able to, there's a level of trust where you can have those conversations with people too. And if they say, yeah, I'm an individual contributor and I want to be the best at this position, that's okay as well.
Yeah.
I also think there's a misconception about growth, because I fall into the camp like Sadie, and I've had to reprogram a little bit since starting here, just because it's a different type of culture than what I was used to. But growth doesn't necessarily have to be vertical. You can be growing and really thriving within your role, but you're just like getting better at those skills. Like,
so are you saying growth, like just org chart growth?
Yeah,
essentially?
I think that's a misconception that's the only way you can grow and succeed within a career. There is a point where just getting really, really good at what you're doing, you're growing and taking on new skill sets and learning new things. Maybe it doesn't change your title, but that doesn't mean it's negative or whatever you call it.
Very true. Yes.
There's my insight for the episode.
No, that's good.
The more you know.
So you guys are doing great things in the community. You guys have been super helpful over the last 2 years. I'd always seen the signs, and I'd seen kind of the marketing in the community, but when we got involved in that, huge props to Becca and Josh for getting us involved with Envision. But before our building project, during the building project, the networking side of things, it's been really, really awesome.
Good.
So
thank you.
Genuine. I've said before, a huge Envision evangelist. So I'm constantly.
He is. He loves you guys.
I really do.
And I spend no time at your office, so I'm so unfamiliar with him.
Thank you. I was a little afraid I was going to start losing some of our team members to Will, because they were spending so much time here. And
no, it's you guys. You do have a great team. Do we play basketball? Joe. He's
you can
Joe's
keep
great.
him.
Fine, okay. He is pretty darn good at his job, and we have an outstanding, stellar team that complements each other really well, and we do really different things every single day. We're a chamber of commerce, so that's a member organization. And then we are the economic development organization for Fond du Lac County, which is a anybody organization. And that is kind of sometimes a hard concept to grasp of we're a business member organization that serves any business needs, whether you're a member or not. And so an entrepreneur, a mid-size, a large size, and I would like to think that you're not a member or an investor yet just because you don't know us. Because once you know us, how can you not like what we do? Who else in the county is leading economic development and business attraction and talent attraction. And, you could say, well, at WiLL, we're doing that. And arguably, yes, and you're doing that for WiLL because that's your company. We're doing it for the county and the region because we're not beholden to just one industry or one business. And I was always aware of Envision, and before that, the AC and FCEDC. And now being in it, it is easy to become a junkie about it, of the cool stuff that we get to do. If you follow Tracy Coleman on social media, every day she posts, "Where is Tracy working today?" Because we're always doing something different. We're always finding out, new businesses. And our Breakfast on the Farm. So we have an agribusiness council. We're the only chamber that we know of in the state of Wisconsin, really anywhere, that has an agribusiness council as part of us, which is kind of nuts. We're in Wisconsin, a huge dairy agriculture state. You think there would be more. And we love our ABC group and the farmers and agribusinesses that we have. And this year, they annually host Breakfast on the Farm. And it was over at Dodger Acres, just outside of Rosendale. Small farm, about 105 or 110 dairy cows, family owned. They don't want to grow, but they want to keep it sustainable and in the family. And if you know anything about dairy farming, 100 cows is not a lot. Mm-mm. Not compared to, back in the day where 25 cows was a huge operation. And so they said, well, how are we going to do this? And they started to look into, and they have a robotic, automatic milking machine. And if you haven't, you have to go on our website and social media and watch the video. It's an extremely expensive piece of equipment. Again, they're the only ones in
Which farm is this?
Dodger Acres.
At 100 head of cow, they have a robotic. Wow, interesting. Two of them. Okay.
And it was an investment. They're the only ones in Fond du Lac County who have this. One of the first ones in the state who has it because it's a really new technology. But the cows go in on demand to get milked, which is also very different. Usually it's just, 7 a.m., 1 p.m., 7 p.m., something like that. So they could get milked up to 5 times a day, they said, some of their cows. Well, for that farm, that's
a busy cow.
Yeah. And that's a lot more money.
Yeah.
But this piece of technology is just incredible. The cow comes into the stanchion locks. It's almost like a car wash. The arm comes over, cleans, then it disinfects, and then it automatically puts the milker on, and then it goes through. And this machine is also measuring how much fat, how much protein, what's the output, and all of that is tracked. And my first job was milking cows out in Mount Calvary, and again, it's one of those, I don't want to work on a farm. They're kind of dirty. And farming has the most advanced technology, probably arguably that is competitive with our advanced manufacturers.
It is wild.
In the county right now.
Adam, have you ever milked a cow?
Yes, goats, cows.
Goats, okay.
I'm not a goat.
I've never milked a goat.
I was, I grew up around a lot of farms.
I was just checking. It was just.
I did not grow up on a farm, but I was surrounded by farms. So
I believe you. I was just checking. I was just curious if you ever milked a cow.
No, yes, cow and a goat, but not using a robot.
Not well. They wouldn't need you.
True.
That's the great part is, with the talent shortage, now they're going to be able to maintain what they're doing without having to try to find talent.
It is interesting in that industry how, because farms work on such low margin. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how a farm with 100 head of cattle or 100 cows can afford to put that in. So obviously it's shared resources at the state and the local level, and I'm sure that farm is almost treated as a little R&D lab where that can get applied to to other things in the state.
Sure.
But yeah, I know Abel's like in Eden right now. Keller just put in a huge expansion. I don't even know how many hundreds and hundreds of cows Abel's
They have
has.
thousands and
Thousands of cows.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's some cool like geothermal energy stuff and like recycling methane gas and putting that back into into the operation for energy. But yeah, it is neat. It is. I didn't realize you guys had a division specifically for that. Do you focus on food processing too? Is that kind of an extension of that group, or it's primarily farms?
So the history and primarily it was breakfast on the farm and ag ambassadors. So agriculture in the classroom, where Amy and Jackie visit 8 to 10,000 elementary students every year to teach them where their food comes from, how is it grown, what's a farm, what's a food group. That was really the impetus behind the Agribusiness Council. And it has now since transitioned a little bit into, because that we're this combined chamber and economic development organization, that now this combination has led to a lot more conversations and partnerships when Amy is talking to a farmer about their needs, and then she can connect them to one of our economic development team for an expansion. So say if Dodger Acres needed some capital and they had a gap, we have a revolving loan fund, which is also pretty unique. They're not they're common, but throughout Wisconsin. So Fond du Lac County is really lucky to have a revolving loan fund that is available for gap financing. So think of us as that final piece of the puzzle to get your project done. And in the past, our agribusiness members were never really treated as equally as a business as our manufacturers were. And yet they are the second industry. They're incredibly important to our ecosystem and our infrastructure and jobs.
There's a lot those two groups can learn from each other. I mean, look at the automation at Wells and the automation at Farm. It's all a lot of the same concepts and principles. And
absolutely. You just gave me a great idea. We should invite some of our agribusiness members to the MIT group.
That'd be cool.
And do a tour at.
Yeah, I think, you sometimes wonder if because people are so busy and they're working so hard, they kind of get isolated into their own little groups. And, that's what's great about, the events that you guys put on is there's some nice kind of paradigm shifts when you get, people that are doing similar things, but in different industries. It's a great way to learn. And that, we were walking around, Wells last night and, different industry, not a competitor at all, but it's just like, man, I wish I could bring the whole team through here right now. It's like, so you're telling me that's how fast a light fixture should get built,
right?
If on a fully automated line, it's great.
When MIT was formed a few years ago, one of the reasons it was formed was because, again, we get to talk to everybody in any industry because we're not the competitors or the we're the confidential, trustworthy. So we talk to everybody, and what we were hearing is that, right, as a business owner or especially a manufacturer owner, you don't talk to any other manufacturers.
I was just gonna ask you about that.
And so we thought, well, that's crazy. We thought you all, go to the tavern every Friday night, to swap secrets and information. So the first MIT event that we held, there were, I'm not gonna get it right because I wasn't there, but in the industrial park in the city, there was a steel manufacturer next to a steel producer. They had never talked. They were buying all of their steel from Ohio, and they never knew about this because they're small.
Yeah.
And so now they buy their steel. Or I know you had Paul Reit's Integrity Saw and Tool. He has a recent-ish customer of same thing. They were sending all of their blades and tools to get sharpened out of state and had no clue that Integrity Saw and Tool was here and in town. So that was crazy because that's our lives every day, is talking to everybody. And that's, again, why we're a great asset and resource, because then we can say, and we've done this, Lisa MacArthur was speaking with one business and another business, Davis Plastics in Brandon, small, 11 people, and they make farm machinery equipment, or implements, I believe, and they wanted to sell. They didn't want to close because that's 11 jobs in little Brandon.
Yep.
That's a lot. And so Lisa had known about another company that was in a similar agribusiness, and she said, well, could I say something to Dean Birschbach and make an introduction? And he said, sure. And then, so Dean bought it, and now those 11 people still
That's awesome.
are employed. They're still creating the same farm machinery, and that never would have happened. I will totally take credit for what Lisa for what we did. That would not have happened if it wasn't for Lisa and what we do at Envision.
And I'm glad you brought up that kind of concept of touring factories and sharing ideas, and people sometimes being concerned about bringing certain people through. And because I've been actually thinking about that a lot. I've been touring some of our vendors, and right now we're setting up a video shoot where we're gonna follow a roll of like a 50,000 pound roll of coil steel from a foundry to a stamping and fabricator. We're actually Paul's gonna be part of it, and he's gonna talk about the tools that he makes to make tool and die equipment. And we're gonna follow it to our plant to watch a product get assembled, and then to the field to get installed. So, and I was, as I'm thinking about asking people, it's interesting how many people are concerned about bringing a camera into a facility, taking pictures. And I've been on, like you've been on hundreds of factory tours over the years, and they're always like, can't take pictures, you can't take videos. And I think that's certainly understandable, but I think there's so much more to be gained by sharing this stuff and bringing people together. And, the odds of somebody taking a picture of a piece of equipment and then having the, $5 million, $10 million in capital to go recreate exactly, it's like, it's pretty low likelihood of that happening. So I think it is great that you guys can kind of serve as a catalyst for people to network at that level, and maybe that'll kind of snowball into people being really comfortable touring each other's facilities, and because there's so much to be learned.
Agreed. And obviously we have some who are direct competitors.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of non-direct competitors. We have a lot of opportunity to become a sub-vendor or a subcontractor to one another. I feel there's a lot more opportunity there than competitive.
Yes, for sure. And the odds of, even if you had, I was on a trip recently and we toured competitors, and they're also vendors, and you end up running into a lot of the same markets and the same people, and the ideas are being exchanged, I think, a lot more than people realize. And the people that are super concerned about exchanging these ideas, I think, are probably the ones that might be, they might be the ones that might be in trouble in the long term. The people that are open to it, I think, there's just, because it's give and take.
Right.
If you share some ideas, that means that it's vice versa. And I think I've never run into a situation where we were not as sharing and giving as possible that did not come back to us in much bigger ways. So it's great you guys create that platform.
Thank you.
I think that's huge.
Thank you.
Well, anything else you want to run through?
Did you know that you can get $15,000 if you move to Fond du Lac County?
Oh, really?
Through our program, our worker relocation incentive
That's
program.
pretty cool. How is that? I know it's been 18 months.
It has been it's coming up on a year.
Okay.
September
Wow, not even
1st.
a year.
And how we created this program in conjunction with Fond du Lac County Capital Resources and Fond du Lac County. So it's using a portion of sales tax dollars earmarked for economic development. And again, we kept hearing talent shortage, talent shortage. What could we do? And is this going to solve everything? No, but it's a piece. It's another tool for our businesses to use when they're trying to attract someone. So if you are attracting somebody to come and live and work in Fond du Lac County, you can offer them up to $15,000, and then after a year of employment and living here, we will reimburse you half of those costs. We've had just about 20 companies utilize
really?
it. We're at, I believe, 150,000 allocated for it. And actually, we have 4 people on a waiting list to approve them.
Oh, really?
They can't find housing.
Yeah.
We need housing. So that's great. We are seeing people wanting to live here and work here. We just got to get them housing.
Well, that's what was it Joe that was talking about that, Becca, when he was on
I think
about the housing shortage in Fond du Lac.
it might have been
And it's
Ben.
not.
it
It's
might have been Ben.
everything. It's
Yeah.
it's a townhouse. It's a multifamily all the
Oh,
way
it
up
was
to
Joe Moore. Sorry,
Joe
it was
Moore.
Joe Moore was talking to us about that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
all the
that's
way
what
up
it
to the luxury homes and the lake homes. So we need it all.
Well, there's apartments going up down the street.
yeah, they're
Right
making
now.
good headway down
I
there.
see that. It's going to be
It
fantastic.
looks really cool.
That's such a cool building. It's really great to see them
Yeah, it's been fun every day
revitalizing it.
driving by and seeing stuff being thrown out of the,
Off
the top windows and into the dumpsters. But yeah, who would have thought Brook Street's getting a nice
We're
nice
coming back,
facelift?
man.
Yeah,
We're doing our
you
part
are
on
the
this side.
changing
Yeah.
face of Fond du Lac for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yep.